Okay, nerd tier list. Let's go. Right, we're gonna rank Power Ranger seasons. It goes from the best, great, good, average, bad, terrible, the worst. This is TV, so standards are pretty normal compared to like movies and stuff like that. Right, okay, we're gonna go in order of the series. Mighty Morphin. It is the very first series, set the tone, but ultimately, is it actually good? I think everyone always looks at rose-tinted glasses. Like, if someone were to say who's the best Red Ranger, Jason will always be in the conversation. But what did Jason really do? Yeah, he was there and he disappeared after season 1. Like, like mid-season 2, along with Trini and Zack, and a lot of the characters didn't really have too much, character. Zack was pretty alright. Tommy, of course, had a lot of focus, but that kind of gets tiring once you reach the mid-seasons, but, in Mighty Morphin it kind of felt fresh. But overall, Tommy still wasn't that interesting. Lord Zed was easily a big highlight, along with Rita. The villains were very much the thing, keeping me watching Mighty Morphin if I ever rewatch it. If I ever rewatch an episode, it's always one where they focus on each other, along with Goldar. He's entertaining. Zordon is kind of just a boring mentor, even though he is iconic, and Alpha is okay, but his voice really gets to you over a long period of time. And a lot of the plots are ridiculous. There is so many episodes of this show to where I kind of have to make it... I think it is bad, but it's a good bad. And don't think that it's a bad show. Like, you can rewatch it, but I'm not giving it an average. Alien Rangers is the mini-series that happened. It's technically a part of Season 3 of Mighty Morphin. It is the shortest thing that we have here, and it is kind of alright, I guess. I would also kind of put it in bad just for being... Basically, it's like Mighty Morphin. It's the same quality. However, the overall... I would give it an average just for the sake of it being ultimately the crossover, so you can at least have it end. But actually, I would put it back into bad for it being the argument of the Alien Rangers are maybe the least developed Power Rangers team we've ever seen in our entire... in the entire show's history. It's insane how underdeveloped these, things are, even though, the red one appears in Forever Red, and he's still nothing, and it's they're just drab and boring, and I'm not a fan. Zeo is a big improvement over Mighty Morphin. I like the extra ranger in it a lot more, that being Jason. I think his story paralleling being the same as Tommy's, but in present day. Oh, I couldn't say parallel. Oh! Being the parallel story to Tommy, I do find really interesting. King Mondo, though, the villains were really dragged down. I really did not like any of the villains in Zeo. Zed having the last laugh by blowing up King Mondo was fun. Overall, I would give Zeo an average. I think characters like the Rangers really take big blows here. I really think they shouldn't have treated Tommy and Kimberly's relationship the way they should have. I really think Adam, Rocky, and basically all the other Rangers that season really got the shaft and didn't get as much focus as you would expect. And the Tommy story about him finding about his roots and stuff is just kind of strange, and it's not really that entertaining to watch. And though those episodes are they're in ski resorts and stuff, I'm tempted to put it next to Mighty Morphin, but overall I think the gold stuff and the intrigue with stuff like Billy and stuff, even though they end up having to forcefully, sadly, get rid of Billy due to the stuff going on with David Yost, ultimately it is better because a lot of the subplots are more compelling. But the overall story is still the same quality, and a lot of the Rangers do feel underdeveloped. So I'm going to give it an average. It's par for the course. Turbo. There's a lot to say about Turbo. Also, I keep placing everything in the average section for when I'm talking about it, so don't think I'm going to put it in average everything at the beginning. It's not going to just float around here. The best thing will also start off here. So, Turbo is a show of two sides, like a coin. The first half is generic Power Rangers, but it is... I think Justin gets a lot of shit because he's a kid Power Ranger, but ultimately I think he was fine, and he's just as kind of blandish. But I think this is where Power Rangers kind of began trying to inject some semblance of personality. I think Divatox is a step up from King Mondo, but she doesn't feel like a threat. She's more of a joke in doing so. She's more entertaining, but she's way not threatening at all in the slightest. I think the... I guess we should be talking about theme songs, right? Like with Zeo and Mighty Morphin, it was iconic, and I really like Zeo's. Turbo's is kind of average. I do like it slightly better than the original Mighty Morphin, because I think the overall tone and sound of the Mighty Morphin one it's just kind of I've heard it so many times where I'm not too much of a fan. With Turbo as well, though, it's a show of two halves. So the second half, of course, is they had to They replaced a lot of the cast, and so we got TJ, we got people like Carlos, very famous Power Ranger characters, basically, that we have now, and they will of course be developed a lot in space. But in Turbo, they're kind of just here. Like they really feel like half-baked replacements, and they kind of serve the same purpose as the people that came before them. So I'm gonna give it a bad. Maybe, see, I do like some elements. Like I really love the finale of Turbo. It doesn't feel deserved, especially with like just the type of villains that they were that season. But I really do love a lot of aspects of lore building, and that's what saves Turbo from being the worst or terrible. That finale was really good, and it really set characters like TJ as being some of the best Power Ranger characters in the entire series. Speaking of, In Space is an amazing show, and I know I said I put all of them in average, but I have to have In Space associated with these three. It is very good. It calls back many things. Referring back to Turbo, the Phantom Ranger stuff kind of went nowhere. They were going to resolve it in Space, but then they couldn't. But they really tied up everything else, though. It's a very good show. You should go watch it, even if not a fan of Power Rangers. You should just watch it as a fan of good writing and development. The Psycho Rangers are some of the greatest concepts that, of course, inspired a lot of Power Ranger stories for the future. And, of course, just things like Andros, his sister, many things in it is just really good. The Z-Wave, I guess, the way I interpret it is that it wipes out the evil that only Zordon knew of. So there's a chance that that's why all the other seasons end up happening. But it's a very emotional climax, and they were expecting it to be the last season, and ultimately I would put it in great. The reason why I don't put it in the best is because, and while it does have a lot of continuity, a lot of it, though, it does, like, I do love episodes like the one where Adam comes back and he uses the Mighty Morphin powers. I love the one where Justin comes back and he uses the Turbo powers and he teams up with DJ. I love the show, and I love DJ as well. It's my favourite in the entire season, if it's not obvious from how often I mention him. He's very, very good. Maybe one of the most underrated Power Ranger characters of all time. But overall, I think In Space is good, but this is going to sound strange to just kind of randomly say, but I think for a really big climactic season, I wasn't a fan of some of the things that they were doing, but it's not that it makes... And I think the overall season, it kind of drags it down as a whole. Like, I do like the Zayn subplot. I do feel like, though, limited by Sentai footage, they had to really restrict how much they use him. So he ends up feeling like a big plot point that's brought in, and then he ends up kind of just tinkering off and not meaning much. And there's a strange thing where he's trying to go out with the main villain, and also I do love the group that the villains form. You know, their parties and their scheming and their planning, and I love those scenes. But there are some aspects to the villains that do fall flat, kind of, sort of. I remember it's the one that I forget some of their names, because of course I'm talking about 20 plus seasons of a TV show that's been running since the 90s. But it was the one villain. He has like the lives. I remember, I feel like ultimately the live concept was an arbitrary way to just kind of recycle some stuff, and you know, I just feel like some of the show, it's not my perfect season, basically, is what I'm saying. So I could still give it the best, but I'm going to give it great. I do love that Bulk and Skull moment where they go up against the people and they say that they're Power Rangers. I love the protecting civilians. The finale is really good. But also I do think some filler episodes are a bit more fillery feeling, because it's such a serialized season to where the rest of the filler episodes do hit different and really drag you down, you know, you've come down for a high. Lost Galaxy, I think, is overlooked because it came right after In Space. I really, really like it. I think Kai is a very underrated Blue Ranger. I think Kendrick, so this is big, we're in spoiler territory if you guys didn't know. Her dying was a massive surprise on my first watch when I was very young. Because I initially, of course, went back, I watched a lot of Power Ranger seasons, because I grew up watching basically Ninja Storm and Beyond, the Disney era, sorry about that stutter, Christ. And basically just, I was almost enamored with Lost Galaxy. Some of its concepts, like the Magna Defender, that story was very good, and like, you know, like his kid is dead, and Mike, and all that stuff, and the Quasar Sabers just are so intriguing. And I'm going to put it right next to In Space, though, because also, for being such a compelling season, the villains, like the daughter, of course, the main villain essentially gets killed, like, more than, like, only a quarter of the way through. And essentially, they have to It's the daughter then who becomes the main villain, and I forget their names right now because of course it's a fucking massive show. But yeah, it's really good and compelling, and the only reason why I don't give it the best is because Lost Galaxy probably doesn't use some episodes to its most effect. So Lightspeed Rescue. Lightspeed Rescue, I think, I'll be honest, I think Carter Grayson, the Red Ranger in it, gets a lot of credit for being like really noble and great and good, but he doesn't really have any development. He just kind of stays the same, and I like the idea of a character that stays the same in a world that's kind of, fucked, kind of like Captain America in the MCU. But it's like, I amn't a fan of, like, it feels like a very bland season. It feels like a very big return to basics, but not in terms of concepts, because in concepts it is back to basics. They're more civilian style. They're more. It's more about kind of like supporting humanity and how cool we are. But I just Lightspeed Rescue is kind of a boring rewatch, and in doing so, I kind of have to put it in bad, and that sucks to say, because it's Lightspeed Rescue and it has one of the best theme songs of all. By the way, In Space, Lost Galaxy, great theme songs. Didn't mention it. Lost Galaxies though kind of repeats a little bit too much. But Lightspeed Rescue legitimately has one of the best theme songs in all Power Rangers, and it goes into the bad section though. It's I do love the Titanium Ranger. The only problem is that he is once again American exclusive. So the way they kind of like have to write him off with the snake tattoo, and it kind of felt like they were coming up with too many excuses at one point. But I do like it, and it really does show innovative thinking at that point from the Power Rangers writers, and they were all like, maybe we should really try new stuff here. So I give the season a lot of credit, but I don't personally like it too much. The crossover though is pretty good with Lost Galaxy. Incept, it's not. It's really bad. It's really bad. It's one of the first crossovers of Power Rangers I ever watched, because I had a VHS tape. God, I'm old. I'm not even 20. I don't know why I said that. But I had a VHS tape with some iconic Power Rangers episodes. This included Forever Red. It included the crossover with Lightspeed Galaxy and Lightspeed Rescue and Lost Galaxy, and it was not good. It was very bad. It was boring. It was monotonous. It was overplayed. And Christ, there was like no Lost Galaxy Rangers in it until like a good bit in, and I did not like it. Right, Time Force. Time Force, I'm just gonna get it out of average. It's probably one of the best seasons of a lot of things that I've watched. It's one of the few seasons where I look at every Ranger and they have very clear characters. The most common thing to say about Time Force is that the Blue Ranger is underdeveloped, but Marcus is his name, and it's like, but even then, there's still a good few episodes about him that you still remember. The one with his license, the one with the little girl, stuff like that. Katie, the super strong Yellow Ranger, she has her quirks and stuff like that, and she's entertaining. The rest of the Rangers, though, legitimately are some of the best for whatever colour they represent. Eric, the Quantum Ranger, is probably the best extra Ranger, aside from one, which I'll get to later. Jen is easily the best Pink Ranger of all time. West is one of the best Red Rangers. And I think the Green Ranger's name is... I forget. But he's great as well. The villain is great. I do love kind of the anticlimactic nature of the series, how he surrenders, and I love the Lightspeed Rescue crossover. Even though I think it was Trakina is the villain they brought back. She sucks, but it's like I think it's still a really good crossover that really respects both teams and puts them on an even level, which is how crossovers should be within media. So I really, really love this season. I think it's really good, and I think the plays on whether your destiny is written in stone, or like things like also killing off, like for people who wouldn't just assume the Red Ranger would come back, like like you kill off a version of the Red Ranger in the first episode. Of course, he's not actually dead. Alex comes back, but it's really compelling stuff. Like, it's legitimately wrote like. It's amazing, and of course they were considering making a Time Force movie, but they didn't. That was like a cancelled project, and I can see why though, because this season really brought a lot of people back because it was so well written and good. Honestly, like, it was really, really good. So next we got Wild Force, and I think Wild Force is the season that basically I remember seeing growing up, so I have a bit of that connection with it, but don't think that will get it a better slot. I do like the villain playing it. I think Master Org himself is kind of generic. He's kind of just evil. That's about it. Like, I do like the whole thing about, like, he lies about being an Org. I think his generals were a lot more interesting. I think it was Gindrax and Toxica? I think so, but I could be wrong. And basically just, they're really fun and interesting. I think Princess Sheila or whatever her name is. She's terrible. I don't like her. I'm not a fan. I think the sixth ranger in it is kind of just, it's the whole thing of he's an evil ranger, becomes good, but he's not really an evil ranger. He's a monster. So that you'll see something like that in Operation Overdrive. But it's like it's kind of overplayed at this point because like they did it with the Titanium Ranger. They even kind of had Time Force have a bit of a sixth ranger that was more of a like antagonist. Personally, was especially in that episode when they went back in time to the dinosaurs. But it's like, yeah, I think Wild Force is okay. I think the best ranger in it is the yellow one or the red one. But I will put it into good overall because I do think it has a lot of rewatchability in terms of just overall entertainment. And the blue and black ranger are good comedic relief. The white ranger is kind of very boring and drab, but I think she has good moments here and there when she's accompanied by blue and black, which I want to say is Max and Danny. So I think Taylor was the Yellow Ranger. She was very good in it. I like that. I liked the idea of the Zords being alive. You see that in Lost Galaxy, but they don't play with it as much as Wild Force does. And it has probably the best crossover in all of Power Rangers in terms of just two teams. It's very good. Oh yeah, and it has Forever Red in it as well. But I'm not gonna like bump it up to great because it has just another crossover in it. That feels like too much bonus points for something. But basically, yeah, Wild Force is a pretty good watch. But personally, I would say watch the team ups and kind of just skip it because overall, a lot of it is. I say Lightspeed Rescue had a lot of like, yay, humanity's awesome. Not nearly as much as Super Megaforce, but fucking Wild Force had a good bit of that as well. Like the concepts of like, oh, good people have hearts and humanity's great, and the global warming message with a lot of it gets fucked. Like it's just kind of meh. So whatever. Ninja Storm. Ranger form, I think Ninja Storm is hilarious. I think it's legitimately funny. I don't know if that makes me childish or stupid or what. I genuinely love it. I love the Thunder Rangers as well. I love the Green Ranger in this, Cam. I think he is so good. I think the story where he gets his powers is really, really, really good. I think Dustin is really fun. I think Tori is good. That's the blue. I think Cheyenne, the red. Like I think I can think of episodes for every ranger here, similar to Time Force, where it's like I can think of an episode for each one where they were very good, very distinct, very clear who they are. This is also one of the few seasons where I can look at and go, here's who you are, you are, you are, you are, you are, you are, you are. And it's like, it's good. I do think Lothor is a ridiculous villain. You can't take him seriously, but why would you? I like having fun, and that's what Ninja Storm is. It's a fun season, and you know what? I'm not going to judge it because Lothor... People judge Lothor for being a joke villain, and they put him in like the worst villains ever. But it's like, as a joke villain though, he's like average to good. So it's like, that's how I'm going to rate it. And I think that like overall, I think a lot of the villains they introduced towards the end of it, they're trying to replace too many, and there's too many generals, and they kill off a bunch, and it's meh. But I do like where the Rangers are at the end of it. There's no crossover, but I don't really need that in a Power Ranger season, but basically just I do think that Ninja Storm is really, really entertaining, and I'm going to put it in great, on par with In Space. But for those of you that aren't listening, I want to visually annoy you by implying that Ninja Storm's better. Next we got Dino Thunder. People give this show a lot of credit for being a real return to form because it's, you know, they're in high school, Tommy's there, and there's an evil ranger. Oh, I think Evil Rangers at this point were very played out. Very played out. The Thunder Rangers had just happened, and they weren't... The Thunder Rangers as bad guys wasn't really believable. You know, you knew they'd go good really quick. But basically just, I think in Dino Thunder, they did a better job at the dynamics of good and evil, especially with Mesogog, was he? Yeah, Megazord, fucking... I said his name correct the first time, I'm not going to say it again. But basically, he's a great villain, and I like him. I really wish they played more with the whole Anton Mercer stuff, but they did a good job. I think Tommy is okay in this. They had, of course, to work around a lot of Jason David Frank's scheduling stuff, and like the amount of episodes he signed on for, because he was in Amber for a while, which was fine, but then he was invisible for a while, and that was kind of meh, and he was stuck in the suit for a while, and it's like, okay. I loved the crossover with Ninja Storm. I think it's really great. And I love the helmets this season, but not so much the suits. I think the suits are kind of lacking, but at the same time I like how minimalistic they are, but it's their symbol just kind of being by itself. I wish there was like one more design element there to kind of key it all together. And I love their theme song. By the way, Ninja Storm theme song after the little intro stuff that you get from it, really good. And what else? Did I talk about any other theme song? No, I didn't. I think I talked... Time Force, 10 out of 10 intro. So good. Anyway, but yeah, Dino Thunder probably goes in good for me. I do think it's overhyped by a lot of people, because people go, best seasons, Mighty Morphin, Dino Thunder. And I'm just like, I don't get that. But I do think Dino Thunder's pretty good. I think Connor, the Red Ranger, he has like this one love interest person. Kind of just... It happens, I guess, and it's like a lot of the villains as well are like kind of like Zeltrax, I think is his name. I'm not sure. He's like the second in command to Mesagog, and it's like, Christ, your story just kind of sucks. It's like your name was like Smitty, and it's like you blame Tommy for like what reason, and it's like just very okay. I also found how much they switch Megazords on it between Trent and evil and good and whatnot. A bit too fucking comedic at times, sometimes, honestly. But yeah, I am going to now move on to SPD, and I'm not going to dick around. It's going into the best, because every SPD like episode, at least last time I rewatched it, which was fairly recently, is fairly good. Whether it be like, I can go from left to right here on like the little image I see. Blue Ranger in it is maybe the best Blue Ranger of all time. He is so good. Sky is amazing. His development and everything. The actual feeling of a transformation within characters, because by the end of it he is the Red Ranger, and we learn that he becomes flat out like the leader of SPD in where he's based, and also in the comics you find out that he becomes Deca Ranger. And it's insane. And it's like Z and just her story, she tries to relate with Sam and stuff. And that's the one shortcoming I can really think of. And that's making Sam not really an actual ranger. That's, even the creators have expressed, that's the one thing they really regret. But even then, the series makes perfectly up for it. Like things like, even like one of the best like comedic relief characters, Boom. I think he's really good. He has a very good episode flat out just called Boom. Bridge, very entertaining, very good, very quirky, but also really just good character, and there's very much a lot of intelligence behind him, and he's not just dumb, he's really good and he thinks things through. Sid, you think she's like bitchy, but she learns to be selfless and she gives up her birthday in one episode, and it's really good. Civilian powers in this aren't as OP as they are in Dino Thunder, so it feels really good. Jack is amazing. He even gives up being a ranger, like just in life, not like as like a sacrifice power thing, which I feel like is something Power Rangers kind of leans on sometimes. It's like, we need an emotional climax. They give up the powers, but with SPD it's, no, they're still Rangers, but he retires. It's not for him. And so, also, he's not on this image, but Kruger, the Shadow Ranger, is the greatest extra Ranger in maybe ever. He's maybe one of the best Rangers in all Power Rangers. He is so good. He is so well written and compelling. Grum is kind of a bit of a generic villain, but I'm willing to forgive it because he has some threatening moments and he has a pretty good design. And I love a lot of his henchmen. Like, I think it's Doomwing or is it Broodwing? Either one, he's very entertaining. And I love how he's a guy in a big bat tank and he's got a tie and it's great. Theme song as well of SPD is 10 out of 10. And I love the comic style of a lot of the transitions in this, and overall it's just a very good season, and you should all go watch it. And you don't even need to watch another episode of Power Rangers from another season to understand it, except for Dino Thunder for the crossovers. And the Dino Thunder crossovers, there's 2 of them and they're both really good, so you should go watch SPD. It's easily my favourite of all Power Ranger seasons. Next we got Mystic Force, which as a kid I remember thinking was kind of cool because magic, and now I'm looking at it and I'm like, it's kind of terrible. I don't like Mystic Force. I like Xander and Chip. Aside from that, I don't really like much. I think Morgana is kind of a boring mentor figure, as opposed to what we just got with SPD, which was the greatest mentor figure in all of Power Rangers. I think the Red Ranger in it is very played out. He gets a lot of shit, and I think some of it's deserved. I think some of it's not. But overall, he's focused on way too much. And it is the curse of something that I'm also going to talk about with another season. Red Rangers get a lot of focus, and it's very boring and bland, especially when it's not well written. The Pink Ranger was there. I don't remember too many of her stories. Same with the Blue. I don't remember too many of her stories either. I remember Chip. I remember that he likes, basically. The Blue Ranger was just there to crush on the Red. But sorry if I cough, by the way. My throat's feeling a little bit scratchy. But my But the thing is, the Yellow Ranger, he at least had personality in the sense that he was positive and he was good friends with the Pink. But it's like, I wasn't still too much of a fan. And then Xander, the green one, he was easily the best one, right? Like, that's why he came back in Operation Overdrive, because he was easily the best one. He was far more entertaining and funny, and it felt like scenes with him were being carried by him. Like, yeah, it's no contest, but I'm putting this season in terrible. I'm not a fan of Mystic Force, and I would personally skip on a rewatch, aside from a select few episodes. Right, so next we have what people would actually consider the worst season now. That's Operation Overdrive. I actually need to talk more about Mystic Force. The Sixth Ranger, the guy with the train, he kind of just, it's not that he kind of just appears. Well, he kind of just appears. He's a frog, and I think he's kissed, and it's like, whatever. But it's like, I'm just not a fan of him. Like, I think his suit's really good, and I really like his helmet design. I like the fact that he's got a cape. Like, they all got capes, but I like his specifically. And I love his Zord, but overall, I don't really like him. And I think the story of that one villain being transformed, what's his name? Bolin? Not Bolin. I'm so sorry, because now it just seems like I don't care about Mystic Force, and I'm putting it in terrible because I don't remember it too much. But I've watched it. That's the thing. I've watched it multiple times. I've watched every season at least 3 times at max. But it's like, I think Mystic Force that's a valid complaint though. I think Mystic Force is forgettable. I think it's not that good. I think that you can just skip it and be perfectly fine, and you won't really miss out on anything. And that's kind of how I feel about Mystic Force as a whole. So next, I'm going to just go for Operation Overdrive. This show is hated on the internet by a lot of people. There's a fly there. Fucking go away. Anyway, but a lot of people fucking hate this show. I don't hate it as much as other people, but I am putting it in terrible. I like Mac the Red Ranger, and I kind of do like some of his story. But overall, even though he is the best ranger in the series, I feel like his story is too clustered and not well written in a lot of areas. So, no, I do like the Mercury Ranger. I think he's alright. I like a lot of his concepts. But then he has some weird filler episodes, like the one where he's copying Will, the Black Ranger, or the one where like he's like the Pink Ranger annoys him, and he's like, no, what have I done? And it's like, and a lot of this show is the same thing, but over and over and over. We have to find a jewel. We have to find a jewel. 4 times over, 5 times even. The Blue Ranger constantly making jokes about how he almost dated that one villain. Pink Ranger constantly just saying smart stuff. Yellow Ranger is fast and obnoxious and doesn't learn anything. Black Ranger, he's a bad boy, he breaks the rules, but we never really see good examples of that because he always just proves that he's a competent ranger, and that's it. So it's just not worth it. And it's like, I know that sounds like the worst season, but it's not. Like, it's really not. It's not the worst. There are some good elements, like the Red Ranger, Mercury Ranger, and even then, like, they have elements to really bring it back. The villains are nothing. I think the one that the Blue Ranger almost dates, I think the Blue Ranger's called Dax, right? And it's like, whatever, the villain, like, that's a woman, and like the one with the mask with the yellow thing going there is alright. I think Once a Ranger is a very wasted fucking crossover. I think it's all just about how the Operation Overdrive team just kind of fucking gave up, and it's about how basically just they suck at their jobs, and how other Rangers come in and do a better job, and then it's just, it really puts the team down, and it's just, you don't even really get that feeling of unity within it. And they randomly also say once a Ranger, always a Ranger, randomly, like they really want to get that phrase over. I don't get it. Was it like a fucking marketing drive for it? It's just not a good season. So, but it's like, I don't think it's the absolute worst. Some people still think it's like the absolute worst in the world, but I don't. Jungle Fury is known as like the sleeper hit season. I would 100% agree. It is very, very good. It is great. I love this season a lot. There are so many things. For starters, I think maybe my favourite villain comes out of this show. That being Daishi. I think Daishi is amazing when he's merged with Jared. Now, of course, the whole point with Daishi is that he is pure evil, so of course when he's separated from Jared towards the end of the season, Daishi is more of a generic villain. But the struggle with Daishi and Jared is very good, and I do like it. I think Camille's really good. And in terms of the Rangers, Casey is one of my favourite Red Rangers. He is amazing. I also love the White Ranger in this, Dominic. I think he's really good. I also love the suit design in this show. Theme song's really good. Oh yeah, I didn't mention the Mystic Force and Operation Overdrive theme song. For good reason. They're not good. the first ever real like Purple Ranger. That's really good. Also, just the whole thing. It's like, oh yeah, he's really a good ranger. His name is what's it? RJ? Yeah, RJ. RJ is flat out like great as a mentor, and it's like the only reason why I think a lot of people don't think of him instantly is because they just think of Doggy Kruger, because he's also a mentor who becomes a Power Ranger. So people just think of Doggy, who's better. But RJ is really good. And of course, Blue and Yellow, whose names elude me right now. I think one's called Theo and one's called... oh, damn it, I forget. But basically, just they're also really good. Like the Yellow Ranger's whole thing is that she's nice, sometimes to a detriment, and but she is really nice. And the Blue one's kind of obtuse, and like, you know, but he's open to it. Like, I love the episode very early on in the series. It's in like the first tree, I think. He teaches Casey about nunchucks, and it's a really good episode. And the White Ranger's just really good. I like the side support character Fran, who I think basically ends up going out with the White Ranger, but they never confirm it because Power Rangers does that a lot. They need to start confirming actual stuff like that, man. But I'm gonna give it, honestly, I'm putting it in best. I think there are some things that are squandered, honestly. Like, there's an episode where they face their fears with the three spirit masters who are trapped in that one realm. And, you know, of course, I feel like they just kind of went with the obvious jokes instead of developing there. But overall, it's some things in this show that I really love. Sometimes more than Time Force and SPD. Ultimately, though, I think both those shows do a better job of doing certain things more. So, of course, you know, I'm going to give them the advantage. But Jungle Fury, for what it does right, it does spectacularly. And it's amazing. RPM. Another really good season. Honestly, very worth watching. It's also a season flat out where you do not need to watch any other season. And I 100% mean it this time. There is literally only one reference to one other season, and that's literally just the Jungle Pizza place from Jungle Fury shows up in one scene as a joke. But it's a far more mature season, even though it's still Power Rangers. It's ridiculous, it's goofy. The Mafia took over like a lot of the city, and like they're basically a necessity, but they do more medicine-based stuff instead of like drugs and stuff. Which, when I described it to my friend, I just flat out said the Green Ranger smuggles drugs, and he believed me because I wasn't lying. I think the focus on the Black Ranger is really interesting for this season, but even then, do not think the other Rangers have no focus, because they all have episodes devoted to them and how they are compelling characters with good story and really good written stuff, and they're really good. And it's like, I like how the Yellow Ranger started off as not started off because it's a flashback, but rather in the past she was a really selfish person, and she developed, and you see that story, and it's really actually heartbreaking, and it's really good. Red Ranger, his story, the stuff about his brother, about his father's respect, his father as well, just a really good character, and it's really just great. Blue Ranger as well, just the fact that he always wanted to be a hero and he finally gets to be one, and his dad and stuff, his dad essentially just wanted him to have like a normal, regular life. It's something that a lot of people can relate to, the idea of wanting to be bigger than what you are, and you know, the people around you just kind of go play it safe, you know, and it's really good to see. And it's like the Green Ranger as well, overall, is also just very good. He's very entertaining. Dr. K as well, really fun, really compelling. It's good stuff, and I don't want to say too much actually about it, because I want you to just go and watch it. Gem and Gemma, which are the Silver and Gold Ranger, which you can't see here, they're really good as well. Sometimes like they talk at the same time and like it's a bit annoying and whatever, but I do like their mentality, and I really like their development. And it's like the reason why they maybe are immature is because really they never really had like a real childhood. They were raised by like the government, which like there's also really tragic elements to this show. It's really tragic, honestly. Like there's ideas of like amnesia, experimentation, torture, and it's like all within Power Rangers, and you wouldn't expect it. And it's one of the seasons that I look at and I tell people this goes above a Power Ranger season. This is good TV, and that's why I probably am into giving In Space the nudge, because it feels sometimes too much like Power Rangers. But SPD, Time Force, Jungle Fury, RPM, when they try to go above what Power Rangers is, sometimes they are very good. They are 10 out of 10s, like in terms of that. So I'm putting RPM in the best, and if I had to sort this out a little bit, I would put RPM above Jungle Fury, but I'd keep it in that order. There we go. Right. Next we got Samurai. Oh god. After talking about two of my favourite seasons, it's really awkward to go back to Samurai. That's like coming down off like crack into like going to work early. Fuck. Oh god. Right, so it does suffer from the same thing Mystic Force does. It focuses too much on the Red Ranger and it's not well written, except this time the writing is actively hypocritical and I really can't stand it. And I do like Lauren, the female Red Ranger that they bring in. Problem is, she is constantly overshadowed by what the fuck Jaden is doing in the script, no matter what. And Antonio, the Gold Ranger, he is kind of alright, but overall, a lot of his story just links into how much he loves Jaden and how much Jaden's great. Green Ranger, Mike, pretty good, except he falls into the trappings of just having to clash with the mentor a lot. Mentor G, who's one of the worst mentors in all of Power Rangers. And it's just, Mike is most of the time in the right. Like, at one point he uses the Beetle Disc, like, which is for Megazord, to fight off some Mugers, and G gets mad, because, like, you should have handed it to Maya, because, you know, it's for Maya in that episode, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But it's like, it's the whole thing of just, it doesn't matter, because it's like, he was in the right call, because it was fucking, in war, you wouldn't get mad at someone for not tossing you a gun. If someone fucking uses that gun and shoots people, you're not gonna fucking question the fact, it's like, well, that's my gun. It's like, I should be able to fucking defend us, it shouldn't matter the reasons. You know? It's like someone getting fucking possessive over like a toy, is how that episode feels. Kevin, the Blue Ranger, had a lot of potential. I do like the twist where he ends up being the one to kill Decker. They should have put more emphasis on that instead of just making it all about Jaden and then they fall asleep in the fire ring and it's like, ooh, Jaden's great. Decker was also kind of stuff forgettable as well. It's played by the same guy that played Cole from Wild Force, who's actually now in prison. But basically just, yeah, I was not a big fan of a lot of these characters. The Yellow Ranger's kind of bland, she's just kind of there to be sympathetic. Bad stuff happens to her. People, like, there's just one selfless moment where they're all wondering if they should sacrifice themselves, like their humanity for her and stuff, and it's kind of nice, but it doesn't feel earned, and it's not good. And it just kind of feels like them trying to throw emotional moments at the wall and hoping it works, but it doesn't, and it shouldn't, because it's not deserved, and that's what the show feels like. It feels like they had a compelling script in mind, and they just went, fuck it, let's just contradict ourselves at like every corner and hope it works, and people will like it, and no one fucking really likes it. And honestly, I'm gonna give it... you guys know it's a battle between terrible and the worst. Let's put it in terrible. Let's put... yeah, these all are about the same. All three of these suffer from the problem of not focusing on their rangers, not having good mentors, not having the potential that was there for obvious storylines. And yeah, just... right, what are we at next? Oh great, Megaforce! Get the fuck. Right, the first season of Megaforce is generically bland and so boring, I wouldn't recommend anyone watch it. It also just has... it's like so boring to the point of like I'd rather watch Samurai, Overdrive and Mystic Force, because at least then stuff is happening, stuff is unfolding, there is objectives. In Megaforce, the only objective isn't even really known, because the villain keeps changing and changing and changing. At one point there's mutants, at one point there's insect people, but they kill that guy off early, and then there's another guy, and another guy, and another guy, and it doesn't fucking matter. And eventually this guy called Vrock comes in, and it's like you think he's the main villain, and then you think he's defeated, but he's really not, because there's a season 2, and that's Super Megaforce, and it's supposed to be the big anniversary season of all of Power Rangers, except it doesn't fucking matter, because guess what? Fucking any sense of destruction is just completely neutralized. There's no big in-space moment where, like, the world's at its back. Well, they try and do that, but it's not earned. It's like Samurai. It's like if you took Samurai and a generic Power Ranger season. So it's not even like how Samurai tries to do things and tries to get your attention. Megaforce just does it. But it didn't try to begin with. There is no trying in this season. They actively don't remove things like Sentai-only teams from like the fights, and that's like frustrating, right? To the point where the comics have to now try and explain some of these teams away, which end up being really good stories. Go read the fucking Boom Comics, fucking Green Psycho story. It's amazing. But it's like, fucking Christ, you're saying like you just don't care at all about like this big anniversary thing that a fuck ton of people actually cared about. That's what it got so many clicks on YouTube, and tons of people wanted to know about the legendary war and stuff like that, the legendary battle. But it doesn't mean anything, because even then the legendary battle, script wise, is done for like no reason. There's just a bunch of fucking minions and it's nothing, and it's like you could have wiped these all out. There's no real conclusion into the series as well. You feel like these characters haven't changed, no transformation. I can go through this entire motherfucking like cast right now, and you know what, I will. Robo Knight, the extra ranger in the first season, is boring and bland. He's basically RoboCop, except there's no real transformation. He tries to learn some humanity things, and some of those scenes are vaguely entertaining, But guess what? They're always putting contrasts of horrible writing with the Rangers. Like one where the Rangers are like killing the main villain, like at that point, because there's so many fucking main villains. And then one is like, then it cuts to fucking Robo Knight in a library chilling out with this one kid learning bullshit rap. And it's just bad. And then like, right, the Silver Ranger is in season 2 is the closest we have to a good character here. Because he comes from a planet that's been killed by the main villain. He comes fucking to Earth. He has a 6th Ranger power, whatever, right? He goes in. But then it's like, whatever, man. It's like, then he's just there, and then he has like a goodbye moment that feels right out of Samurai, where like he just begins, no, it feels right out of Operation Overdrive. It's like, you taught me this and that. It's like, what the fuck did we see? You haven't done anything. None of these characters have interacted. They feel bland and boring. Like, the guy that plays the Red Ranger, I feel honestly bad for him, because I hear he can actually act. Bad thing is, motherfucker is so bland in this, and there are so many scrapped plans, basically, and I basically just hear that this fucking episode was, like, not episode, season, like, was just straddled with people that had ideas, and then none of them came into fruition, and they all just sat down and had the most boring episodes that have ever existed in, the, like, all of Power Rangers. Skip this season, don't even watch the Legendary Battle, because it also is just confusing. Like, how are certain Rangers there? And I'm perfectly fine. I'm not one of those people that need to know how every single power is used within it. Why the fuck were they there? Why weren't they there before? And why did they just kind of like vapor off and shit like that? And it annoys me. Like, it's just... Dino Charge, right, okay. Dino Charge and Super Dino Charge. Dino Charge has good Rangers in it. It's kind of like Turbo, how like there's two halves, in the sense of like half the Rangers are good, half of them kind of exist. Alright, so let's talk about the main ones. I love the Red Ranger, I love the Pink Ranger. They're really fun. I like that they actually do kind of become a couple. Black Ranger is fun for episodes focused around him. Green Ranger's kind of like, his whole thing is that like he's kind of, you know, like the Blue Ranger from Jungle Fury. He's kind of like, overall, he's like strict-ish, but not really too strict. He's like all about, we gotta train and stuff like that, but not on the level of like Kevin from Samurai. He has fun loving to him, so he's okay, I guess. Blue Ranger Coda has kind of become like a fan favorite recently, which I can see. He's fun. He's got like, you know, a good actor. Then you look at the other Rangers. Sir Ivan, the Gold Ranger, he's basically the 6th Ranger properly. He's pretty good. I like him. I like the story with Fury that was going on throughout the series. That was pretty good. The story of the Red Ranger's dad was okay. I thought the payoff was kind of alright, because he just ultimately disappears. He should have been more episodes. He became the Aqua Ranger. I think the Silver Ranger stuff was kind of alright. It felt more like a fake-out subversion stuff. Now, technically it wasn't a fake-out subversion, because like everyone knew that he was going to be kind of like an evil Ranger and then not be. And then eventually you get the Silver Ranger back and it's like, woo, and he ends up being an alien. Keeper was an okay mentor. There's not really notable of word. I would put him like in kind of bad in terms of mentors, but whatever. So ultimately I would put Dino Charge in... Like, Dino Charge's filler is actually really entertaining, and then its main story is kind of alright. Sledge is an awesome villain. He's so funny, but then also he has moments of being intimidating and cool. And Snide and Heckle and stuff is also fun. I'm going to put it in... good. Top of good, ahead of Dino Thunder. Some people aren't going to like that, but fuck them. Ninja Steel. Ninja Steel, I think, has a big issue with being kind of boring. A lot of its filler feel like heavy filler. I am not opposed to filler. Like, you look at people like with animes, they see filler and they fucking panic and they're all like, I need to skip all this filler. I think filler is really good to set a tone, and it can also show you who a character is. Ninja Steel, I never really got a feel for who some of these characters are. The Pink Ranger, the White Ranger, the Blue Ranger, they felt really lost in the shuffle in this season, and they really didn't feel like much, and that feels like I'm going to lower it to where Mystic Force and stuff is. The Blue Ranger, they honestly tried. The White Ranger and Yellow Ranger this season were going out. That was a fun dynamic, but ultimately they didn't write it very well. Like, they had a final conflict in the last few episodes, and it's like, it really wasn't that portrayed well. There's a dog in it, whatever. The Gold Ranger is kind of like alright. I do like the beginning of his stuff. He's a captive. There's good ideas, but ultimately I need to put it in terrible, honestly. No, bad, because I do like the villain game show thing that they do. That's fun. But they do also do the thing that Megaforce kind of does, where they switch main villains here and there. But they only do it once, with Ninja Steel to Super Mega Steel. But they do kind of share some villains. Like, at one point Sledge comes in for a little bit, but that's because of a crossover, so you can't really blame them too much on that. Oh yeah, by the way, can we just talk about Samurai's really bad crossover with RPM? It was bad, and I don't want to talk about it any more than that. So now we go to the most recent season. that being Beast Morphers. And it was the first of the Hasbro era, which is still going right now with Dino Fury. Okay, so basically, I loved it. I thought it was great. I thought it was a really good way to introduce how Hasbro treats Power Rangers. A strong sense of continuity, while also being able to stand on its own 2 feet. Making things like Venjix actually end up being like the real main villain, and introducing Dr. K and elements from RPM was really cool. And as a longtime fan, it was very good to see a lot of these things come into play. There was also many Easter eggs. There was the big Dino crossover where they brought in the other Dino teams. That was actually fairly good. I also liked how they had that episode where basically they were just seeing what villains to bring back and stuff, which is something they can do. Hasbro was very clearly embracing the fact, kind of like with Transformers recently, they're embracing the fact that they have history to these characters, even if they're not the ones that made it. So I hope that Hasbro is really, and it seems like Dino Fury, because I've only watched the first 3 episodes so far, it seems like with Dino Fury they're willing to tell stories that don't have like the most generic endings like imaginable. Like the Red Ranger in Dino Fury, his team's dead, like it seems like full on dead. So also in Beast Morphers, Steel, the Silver Ranger, was a standout. I legitimately thought he was very funny. The same way I thought Ninja Steel was funny. Like I thought this season was like funny when it needed to be. I think Blaze and Roxy could have showed up a bit more in season 2 to kind of really show that payoff of season 1. But ultimately, I did like their little appearances here and there. I loved the Mayor Daniels in this so fucking much. Every time he was on screen, I was either cracking up or I was just compelled to watch him. I love his speech at the first episode where he's talking about potential villains and stuff. It's very good, and it instantly just establishes the sense of continuity the show has. I love the Red Ranger. I think he's really good in it. I like the Yellow Ranger, but sometimes she can be a bit annoying. Like they try and play her off as too ambitious, and sometimes, you know, she has so many ideas and stuff. But I like the sense of family this show has. You like the sense of Steel and Nate being brothers. Nate is kind of the weakest Ranger on the show in terms of like, you know, a lot of the times what he says, he just kind of sounds wrong, even though sometimes he's in the right. He just has like that voice, you know. But I love the Blue Ranger. He was really fun. I like him in season 1 more than season 2, because it seems like in season 1 they were trying to focus on gold and silver more, which is perfectly fine. And yeah, I really like where a lot of them end off in the series. Now, ultimately, it doesn't have like, it's not perfect, but I think it's really good, and I'm gonna put it in great. I like it probably better than Lost Galaxy, maybe. And upon thinking of it more, let me see. I'm gonna review my choices now. Yeah, this is actually about right in terms of like what I like from Power Rangers. So yeah, this is basically my tier list. SPD, my favourite season of all time. Time Force, RPM, Jungle Fury, Ninja Storm, In Space, Beast Morphers, Lost Galaxy. If you have to go out and look for a few seasons, look for this. They are very good. They are really good. You will not regret it. You will have a good time flat out watching these seasons. Dino Charge, Dino Thunder, Wild Force. I'm going to move Wild Force down to average. I think that's fair. But Dino Charge and Dino Thunder, you will maybe have a good time. It just depends on who you are. The style of these shows is semi-different, but also semi-the same. You know, it's Power Rangers, of course. The style is always vaguely able to be connected to the same thing. But I personally like Dino Charge better. Dino Thunder is okay, ultimately. Like, I would put it in average, but I do think that there should be a hard separation between these shows here in bad and average and good. That feels more right than it is. So, yeah. And I know it seems bad to just kind of put Megaforce worst by its own. That feels so generic. To where the more I think about it, the more I want to put Samurai down there. Yeah, but yeah, that feels more right. I want to put Samurai down there just for the sake of, it really pisses me off sometimes, a lot of these characters. Megaforce has no character, but Megaforce actively make me mad at the characters they have sometimes. So I would 100% put Samurai here in worst. Like, here's the deal. Operation Overdrive, they don't change, and they're boring, and they're dull, and they annoy me. But Samurai is that they try and not be boring. They try and not be dull, but they still annoy me. And whenever they try and get interesting, they annoy me even more and further. The only one that's semi didn't annoy me was like yellow and blue, and even then blue has moments so where like he annoys you, and it's like Christ, that's Kevin and Emma for in terms of colors. I know their names, but it's like Christ. So that's basically it. I feel really good having Lightspeed, Turbo, Ninja Steel, Alien Rangers, Mighty Morphin all kind of together. Operation Overdrive, Mystic Force, yeah, they're pretty bad. Like, and then Samurai Megaforce, they're just flat out like awful. I wouldn't watch them. They're not good. Yeah, so that actually is my tier list, guys. So if you want me to do a video kind of similar to this, tiering maybe certain rangers and stuff like that, I'll do that. I'm happy to do that. Leave a comment about what other tier list you want to see. I have a very small number of subscribers, literally only like 6 at this point. So I'll literally do like whatever tier list you guys like throw down. I'll be perfectly fine like at this point. Like I'm at that YouTube size where I can literally just like make a video in like a few hours just based off of like one comment, and I'll do it. Next tier list I'm thinking of making involves WWE and rosters going on right now. So if you're interested in that, you know, give me a comment, yes or no, maybe so. And basically just, yeah, that's basically it. I've been Reverse Nova. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. If you agree with me, give me a thumbs up. But if you don't give me a thumbs down. Hold off from that. Hold on a minute. How about instead you leave a comment? You basically, you leave your own little list down there. You know that will help. Okay. You don't need to hit that dislike because you disagree with me. It's all fun. Let's work this out like adults. You know. Right. So, with that said, peace out. Have a good one.